Guys, Charles Oliveira is an absolute savage. Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. Dariush on a long win streak. Charles Oliveira, obviously with a ton of fire still in his belly, wanting to get that UFC title. Charles Oliveira showed up under the brightest lights, the biggest opportunity, the title eliminator to get him back to a title shot. And it remains to be seen if he will get the next title shot against Islam Makhachev. But the way that he fought Saturday night at UFC 289, the dude looks like he is coming back for that title. Let's go ahead and watch the fight. You guys won't be able to see it, but you'll be able to hear it. And I want to give you a little fight commentary, a couple little interesting idiosyncrasies, different things that I notice in the fight about how Charles fights, Charles Oliveira, gamesmanship, veteranship, poise, as well as the savagery of getting that TKO in the first round. So here we go. Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush, UFC 289. Right away, John Anik calls it a title eliminator, and it is. So right away, Charles Oliveira went from being a guy who was just a ground fighter, somewhat bull versus matador, running somewhat away from guys earlier in his UFC career, to straight up taking the center of the octagon, using his length, using those front kicks, those teep kicks straight up the middle to remind Dariush that he hits extremely hard and he's coming straight down the pipe with long shots. You can see him putting the pressure on, but also not putting himself in a crazy amount of a damaging distance, if you will. At the very beginning, nice little combination thrown. Dariush starts to realize Oliveira's hitting me fast, hitting me early, and hitting me often. So he starts to make the fight a little bit more grimy, tries to push Oliveira up against the cage, to which Oliveira switches the position, throws in a inside trip, but ultimately ends up on his back. Now remember, Charles Oliveira has, I believe, the most submission finishes in UFC history. So he's not afraid to be on his back. Experienced BJJ black belt. Dariush doing everything that he can to do as much damage as he can. But what Charles Oliveira is extremely good at is being on the bottom, almost playing possum, lulling you into that ground and pound game where you're going to be extending your arms, extending your limbs, putting yourself off balance. And all the while, Charles is locking up an arm. He's locking up your head like he did against me. When I got him hurt and I got on top of him, he was just reaching and pulling himself into me as much as possible. So you can see Dariush is now in the first round, been on top of him for 30 to 45 seconds and hasn't really done much damage at all. Charles constantly keeping him at bay, pushing him away, threatening with the sweep. Right now at 3:02 in the first round, he throws his leg over, threatens with a heel hook, which is always a scary scenario. It doesn't matter if you're a phenomenal leg locker, BJJ black belt, or you're brand new. If you get a hold of someone's small extremity, that ankle, it's always a scary thing. So once again, Dariush gets out of the leg lock, goes back on top. But I think Charles, and remember, Charles gets the TKO at the very end of this round here in about 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes rather. But right now he's just buying his time, laying on bottom, staying on bottom, kicking away, and throws those up kicks, which he's very good at. He's got very long legs. Dariush trying to find and figure out, do I stay all the way in? Do I stay all the way out? If I stay all the way out, Oliveira is going to get back up. And I think Dariush doesn't want to be in that stand-up exchanges between himself and Oliveira. So Dariush is realizing he's just buying his time right here. He's taking ticks off of the clock. He's winning. Oliveira with a figure four across the body, and ultimately just tying up Dariush. Now he's got double overhooks right now, so Dariush can't really do a lot of damage on top. One thing that I really admire about Oliveira, which is very much different than me, he's not afraid to take his foot off the gas. He's not afraid to have his foot pressed firmly on the brakes, so to speak, and just buy his time and wait. Now he knows after being ridden on top for about 2 minutes, now he gets up to his feet. Dariush threw big shots on top to no avail, didn't really do much damage. Now you see Charles Oliveira doing some work, pushing Dariush up against the cage, head underneath of his chin, hitting him to the body shots. Oliveira is a big body 155 pounder. He's about 6 foot tall. still keeping his back to the center of the octagon, throws a 2, follows it up with a big high right high kick, hurts Dariush, puts Dariush on skates, drops him with a shot to the back of the temple. And the way that Oliveira negotiated and navigated getting on top of Dariush and flipping around, making sure he didn't get in a position where he wasn't able to strike, hitting it with a ton of hammer fists. The referee is already in there. Jason Herzog, I believe, was about to finish the fight, and then he ultimately does with those hammer fists. But I think the biggest thing that needs to be said about this performance, this is a title eliminator. This is Charles Oliveira staking his claim that I am one of the best lightweights on the planet. He's proven it time and time again. Charles Oliveira 2.0 was our champion for 4 fights or so, finishing Poirier, finishing myself, finishing Gaethje, obviously losing to Makhachev. But this was a statement fight. Dariush ranked number 4. Oliveira, I believe, ranked number 1, 2, 3, somewhere in there. And obviously Islam is the champion. His last loss was to Islam. So he needed to come back. He needed to stake his claim as one of the best fighters on the planet at 155 pounds. And the way that he did it, with the ebb and the flow, the give and the take of the fight, not being afraid to be on his back, knowing that he's a BJJ black belt, knowing that Dariush was going to feel just like I felt when I was in Charles's guard. He almost lulls you to sleep in the fact that you're wondering, why is this guy willing to just lay there and take this damage or take the risk of taking damage? As I said, you can't do a ton of damage to Oliveira because he's very long. He's got a long torso and long arms to tie you up and tire you out. Because you got to remember, on bottom, unless you're really working hard to get out or you're taking damage, you're not expending a lot of energy. So I think Charles Oliveira is very good at energy navigation. You've seen it also in other fights. I hit him, he went down to his back, pulled guard. Gaethje hit him, hurt him, he went down to the guard. Poirier hit him, hurt him, and he went down to guard. He was knowingly forcing himself to go to the guard and forcing you to make a decision. Okay, you hit me. Okay, I went down. Now come into my world. And most guys don't go on top of him. And that is one of the reasons why I think Dariush tried to do a ton of damage, wasn't able to do a lot of damage. Then Charles knew eventually these are 5-minute rounds. These are long, long rounds. And eventually I'll get back to my feet. Hits him with a hard 2, followed by a hard high right kick, which put Dariush on his roller skates, started making him take steps backwards, hit him with a couple more. The way he navigated that ground control was seamless, very flowy, so to speak. Charles Oliveira is a savage. I hope to share the octagon with him again eventually. I would like to run that one back, obviously, but the way he looked that night against Dariush, UFC 289, was absolutely masterful. Hats off to you, Charles. God bless. See you at the top.